Donald Trump had built an empire on ambition, resilience, and an unshakable belief in his own vision. He had transformed industries, redefined real estate, and turned his name into one of the most powerful brands in the world. For years, he had navigated the highs and lows of the business world, always emerging stronger. But this time, something unexpected happened. A powerful bank, one that prided itself on controlling the financial landscape, made the mistake of saying no to Trump. At first, it seemed like a routine decision. Banks reject proposals all the time, but what they failed to realize was that Donald Trump was not like any other businessman. A rejection to him wasn't a roadblock, it was fuel. It was a challenge, and no one challenges Trump without consequences. The executives at the bank believed they had the final say. They thought that by shutting the door on Trump, they had ended the conversation. They had no idea they had just set in motion one of the most legendary business reversals in history, because while they were celebrating their supposed victory, Trump was already plotting his next move. He didn't just want to move past the rejection, he wanted to turn it into a defining moment. He wanted to make sure that everyone who had doubted him would regret it. And most importantly, he wanted to remind the world that no one, not even the most powerful banks, could dictate his success. What happened next would leave the financial world stunned. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement, a lesson that would be studied in boardrooms for decades to come. They thought they had blocked him, but they had no idea what was coming. If you believe in leadership, power, and second chances, this is the place for you. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to never miss an inspiring Trump story. Donald Trump had spent his entire career defying expectations. He wasn't a man who followed traditional paths, he created them. He had transformed the New York skyline, built an international brand, and turned his last name into a symbol of success, power, and resilience. When he walked into that bank, he carried with him more than just a proposal. He carried a legacy of winning. Yet, when he sat before the executives, presenting a meticulously planned deal that should have been a straightforward approval, the response he received was cold and final. No, the rejection wasn't based on logic. It wasn't because the numbers didn't add up. It was something else entirely, the real reason the bank said no. At first, some speculated that the decision was purely financial. Perhaps the bank underestimated Trump's resources, assuming he was overextended or lacked the necessary backing for such a large-scale deal. But that explanation didn't hold up under scrutiny. Trump was one of the most recognizable and influential businessmen of his time. He had secured financing for far bigger projects, had worked with countless financial institutions, and had a proven ability to turn investments into massive successes. The more people analyzed the bank's decision, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about money. This was about power. The executives sitting across from Trump weren't just bankers, they were gatekeepers. They saw themselves as the ones who decided who succeeded and who didn't. In their world, powerful financial institutions dictated the rules, not independent moguls like Trump. And Trump, he had never played by their rules. For years, he had built his empire without bending to the financial elite. He had found ways to outmaneuver traditional institutions, secure funding through unconventional methods, and turn himself into a force that no one could ignore. The bank saw this deal as a threat. If they helped finance Trump's vision, they would be strengthening a businessman they could not control. They knew that if he succeeded, his influence would only grow, and that was something they weren't willing to allow. So they rejected him, not because he wasn't a worthy investment, not because the deal wasn't profitable, but because they believed they could stop him. The arrogance of the financial elite. Sitting in their polished boardroom, surrounded by years of accumulated power and influence, the bank executives thought they had the final say. They saw Trump as just another businessman seeking their approval, someone who, without their funding, would be forced to scale back, compromise, or abandon his plans. Altogether, they assumed that their rejection was the end of the conversation, that Trump, like so many others before him, would be forced to accept their decision and move on. But what they failed to understand was that Donald Trump was not like anyone they had ever dealt with before. To him, a rejection was not a stop sign, it was an open challenge. A line had been drawn, and Trump was about to show them that they had just made the worst mistake of their careers. Donald Trump had been underestimated before. Time and time again, he had faced doubters, critics, and so-called experts who claimed he had reached his limit. Yet each time, he proved them wrong, not by complaining, not by backing down, but by turning every rejection into an opportunity for an even greater victory. This moment was no different. When the bank rejected his proposal, most businessmen would have left quietly, seeking another institution to finance their project. After all, banks were powerful entities. They controlled the flow of capital, dictated who could expand, and often saw themselves as the ultimate decision-makers in the world of finance. But Donald Trump did not operate under their rules. To him, rejection wasn't a failure. It was fuel. It was a sign that he was onto something so big, so powerful, that the very institutions who prided themselves on controlling wealth felt threatened by it. The bank executives had made a critical miscalculation. They believed their decision was final. They thought Trump needed them. They assumed that, like countless others before him, he would simply accept their ruling and look elsewhere. But what they failed to realize was that Donald Trump never plays a game where someone else holds the cards. He wasn't just going to find another way forward. He was going to turn their rejection into a masterclass in power, strategy, and dominance. A new game begins. As soon as he walked out of that boardroom, Trump's mind was already working at full speed. This wasn't just about securing funding anymore. It was about proving a point that no one, no bank, no institution, no financial elite had the power to stop him. He wasn't going to settle for another lender. That would have been too easy, too predictable. Instead, he was going to make the bank regret its decision in a way that would shake the very foundations of their industry. He had built an empire on strategy, intelligence, and calculated risk. Now, he was about to take one of the greatest financial risks of his career, but it wouldn't be a gamble. It would be a guaranteed win. The bank had given him an opening they didn't even realize existed, and Donald Trump was about to turn that opening into his greatest power move yet. Because in his world, there were only two kinds of people, those who controlled their fate and those who let others control it for them. And Trump had never been and would never be the latter. Donald Trump was never one to accept rejection. It wasn't in his nature to retreat, compromise, or let others dictate the terms of his success. Throughout his career, he had encountered opposition from every direction: business elites, political adversaries, and financial gatekeepers. Yet every single time, he had found a way to turn setbacks into opportunities that no one saw coming. This time would be no different. The bank executives sat in their high-rise offices, convinced that they had successfully blocked Trump's deal. They saw themselves as untouchable, the ultimate authority in deciding who could expand, who could build, and who could rise to the next level of wealth and influence. What they didn't realize was that by shutting the door on Trump, they had just handed him the blueprint for their own downfall. Because while they were congratulating themselves on what they believed to be a strategic rejection, Trump was already working on something far greater, something that would not only erase their decision, but leave them wishing. They had never tried to shut him out in the first place. The masterstroke begins. Trump didn't react emotionally. He didn't lash out or show any sign that the rejection had affected him. That wasn't his style. Instead, he did what only the most brilliant strategists do. He took a step back, assessed the battlefield, and designed a counterstrike so powerful that by the time his opponents realized what was happening, they would already be defeated. His first move was to leverage his network. The banking world was full of institutions that competed for dominance. If one bank said no, another would jump at the opportunity to fund a project that was sure to succeed. Trump wasn't just another businessman, he was a proven name, a global brand, and a deal maker known for turning real estate into gold. While the executives who rejected him believed they had shut down his expansion plans, Trump was already securing a financial backer that would not only replace the original bank, but give him even more flexibility and power than before. But that was only step one. Securing funding wasn't enough. Trump didn't just want to move forward, he wanted to make a statement that would shake the financial world. And to do that, he would need to completely shift the balance of power, using the bank's arrogance against them. The same institution that rejected him had assumed they were in control. They thought that their approval was necessary for a deal of this scale to happen. But Trump saw an opportunity that they never expected. Instead of just securing his project elsewhere, he went a step further. He positioned himself in a way that would turn the tables on the very institution that had tried to stop him. His strategy was not just about getting funding, it was about making the bank irrelevant. The final blow, the plan that no one saw coming with his network mobilized, his financial backing secured, and his next steps planned with absolute precision, Trump moved into the final stage of his counterstrike. He knew that the bank executives had dismissed him not because the deal wasn't profitable, but because they believed they could control who succeeded and who didn't. They saw themselves as gatekeepers. Trump was about to remove the gates entirely. His next move would be so unprecedented, so bold, and so completely unexpected that it would leave the financial world in shock. He wasn't just going to succeed despite their rejection. He was going to prove that they had no power over him at all. Because while they were still reveling in their so-called victory, Trump had already designed their downfall. And by the time they realized what was happening, it would be too late to stop him. Donald Trump's journey is filled with resilience, bold decisions, and unforgettable moments. Stay inspired. Like this video, drop a comment below, and subscribe to be part of this movement. Donald Trump had built his career on calculated risks, high-stakes deals, and an unshakable belief in his ability to win. He understood something that many businessmen never grasped. True power doesn't come from approval, it comes from control. So when the bank rejected him, thinking they had shut him out of the deal, they made a catastrophic mistake. They believed they were the ones holding the power, that they had the final say. What they didn't know was that Trump had already moved beyond them. While they were still basking in their perceived victory, Trump was already executing a counterstrike that would redefine the entire playing field, securing the deal on his own terms. Most businessmen, after being turned down by a major bank, would scramble for an alternative. They would negotiate harder, accept worse terms, and make compromises just to keep their project alive. Not Trump. Instead of lowering his expectations, he raised the stakes. He didn't just look for new financing. He demanded better terms, more control, and a deal structure that would give him an even greater advantage than before. And he got it. Through his vast network of financial connections, Trump secured a far superior financing package, one that offered him better interest rates, more flexibility, and, most importantly, complete independence from the bank that had tried to shut him out. The financial world could hardly believe what they were seeing. He had not only secured the funding, he had turned the rejection into leverage, flipping the script in a way that no one expected, turning the tables. The move that shocked the industry. At this point, Trump had already won. He had outmaneuvered the bank, secured his project, and eliminated any need for their approval. But he wasn't finished. He saw an opportunity to do something that would not just prove them wrong, but make them regret ever doubting him. He knew that this wasn't just about a single deal. It was about making a statement. And so, with his new financial backers firmly behind him, he made a power move so bold that it sent shockwaves across the industry. Trump didn't just proceed with his original plan, he expanded it. He didn't just build his vision, he built it bigger. And in doing so, he completely reversed the dynamic of the situation. Where the bank had once thought they could control the outcome, they now found themselves watching helplessly as Trump achieved success on an even greater scale, without them. The moment the bank realized their mistake. By the time the bank executives understood what had happened, it was too late. They had believed their rejection would hinder Trump. Instead, it had given him the opportunity to win even bigger. The financial world took notice. This wasn't just a business maneuver. It was a message to every institution that had ever tried to stand in Trump's way. It was a reminder that true success isn't granted by others. It is taken by those who refuse to be denied. Trump had just rewritten the rules, and the banking world would never underestimate him again. The moment that shocked the financial world, Donald Trump had spent his career turning rejection into domination, and this time was no different. The bank executives had assumed they held the upper hand, that their rejection was the final word. They believed they had controlled the narrative, that they had dictated the outcome of the deal. They could not have been more wrong. While they were still reveling in their so-called victory, Trump had already rewritten the script. He had secured superior financing, crafted a deal more powerful than his original plan, and most importantly, he had ensured that the bank that rejected him would regret their decision for years to come. But what happened next was the move that shattered the illusion of control that the bank had so arrogantly believed in. Trump's ultimate power move, a humiliation they never saw coming. With his new financing secured and his project fully backed on better terms, Trump now had one last move to play, one that would not just ensure his success, but would publicly expose the bank's miscalculation in a way they could never recover from. The executives who had once sat across from him, smug in their rejection, suddenly found themselves in a situation they could never have predicted. The financial world was watching closely. Investors, analysts, and industry insiders were talking. How had Trump managed to turn the tables so completely? How had the man they thought they had blocked now emerged stronger, more powerful, and in complete control of the very market they believed they dominated? And then it happened. Trump made the move that changed everything. He didn't just succeed despite their rejection. He found a way to ensure that they would forever be remembered as the bank that turned down one of the greatest business deals in history. Whether it was by acquiring the very institution that rejected him or by orchestrating a deal that directly outperformed and outshined them, one thing was clear: the bank had not just lost. They had been outplayed in a way that sent shockwaves through the industry. The fallout, when reality hits. The executives who once dismissed him now faced the harshest reality possible. Their rejection had not weakened Trump. It had given him the opportunity to expose their arrogance on a global scale. They had tried to shut him out, only to realize that he had built an empire right next to them, one that now overshadowed their own influence. By the time the financial world understood the magnitude of what had just happened, the damage to the bank's reputation was irreversible. Trump had not just proven them wrong, he had ensured that their decision would go down as one of the most regrettable mistakes in business history. And as the news spread, as investors, competitors, and the media dissected every detail of the incredible power shift, one undeniable truth emerged. Donald Trump had done what no one thought possible. He had taken the ultimate rejection and turned it into the most stunning victory the financial world had ever seen. Imagine their faces when they realized the tables had turned. Because in the end, it wasn't the bank that controlled Trump. It was Trump who had controlled the game all along. The moment Donald Trump executed his masterstroke, the world took notice. What had begun as a routine rejection by a powerful bank had now transformed into one of the greatest comebacks in business history. At first, the financial world struggled to process what had just happened. The same institution that had arrogantly dismissed Trump's proposal now found itself overshadowed, outplayed, and exposed. But once the reality of Trump's stunning victory set in, the media exploded. A story too big to ignore. The news cycle was completely taken over. Headlines dominated the front pages. Trump outmaneuvers banking giants, a business masterstroke. How Trump turned a bank's rejection into a billion-dollar power move. The rejection that backfired. Financial world in shock over Trump's revenge. Television networks scrambled to bring in economic experts, analysts, and political commentators, all of them trying to make sense of how Trump had flipped the situation in his favor so spectacularly. Some called it a stroke of genius, others called it the most ruthless business maneuver of the decade. But one thing was clear: it was a move that no one had seen coming and no one could ignore. The analysts, the critics, and the praised business leaders who had once doubted him were now forced to reconsider their views. Economic analysts, many of whom had once dismissed Trump's tactics, found themselves admitting that this was one of the most brilliantly executed power plays in financial history. Some critics tried to spin the narrative, claiming that Trump had just been lucky, that he had taken an unnecessary risk. But the facts spoke for themselves. This was not luck. This was strategy, vision, and unshakable confidence. Social media erupts. The world reacts beyond traditional media. Social platforms were set on fire with discussions, debates, and reactions. Videos breaking down Trump's move step by step went viral. People from all walks of life, business owners, investors, and everyday supporters, celebrated the sheer brilliance of his maneuver. Memes flooded the internet, highlighting the irony of a bank that had rejected Trump, only to see him emerge stronger, richer, and in complete control of the situation. The legacy of the move, what Trump had done, was more than a financial victory. It was a historic statement. It was a lesson to every corporation, every institution, and every so-called expert who thought they could dictate the terms of his success. Because this story wouldn't just be analyzed in boardrooms and economic circles. It would be remembered for generations as one of the most legendary business reversals of all time. The world was watching, and what they saw was nothing short of legendary. As the news of Donald Trump's unbelievable victory spread like wildfire, the executives who had once sat across from him, smug in their rejection, now found themselves in a nightmare of their own making. The institution that had once prided itself on controlling the financial world was now being laughed at, analyzed, and ridiculed on every major news network. What was once a simple rejection of a business proposal had now become one of the greatest miscalculations in corporate history. And for the executives involved, there was nowhere to hide. A corporate meltdown. The moment the magnitude of their mistake became clear, panic set in. Phones rang non-stop. Investors, shareholders, and clients demanded answers. How could they have turned down a deal that ended up becoming one of the most powerful moves in modern business history? How could they have been so blind to Trump's ability to flip the situation entirely in his favor? And worse, how could they recover from this humiliating defeat? But the truth was, there was no recovery. The bank had overplayed its hand, believing it could dictate the outcome, believing it could control someone like Donald Trump. Instead, it had now become a global example of what happens when arrogance meets unstoppable ambition. Mass resignations and boardroom chaos. Behind the closed doors of the bank's headquarters, executives scrambled to contain the fallout. There were emergency meetings, crisis calls, and desperate attempts to spin the situation, but none of it worked. Shareholders were furious. Clients were losing trust. The board of directors was in complete disarray. And then the resignations began. One by one, executives began stepping down, trying to distance themselves from the disaster. Some tried to shift the blame, claiming they had advised against rejecting Trump's proposal. Others simply vanished from the corporate world, their careers forever tainted by the decision that had cost their institution not just a deal, but its credibility, reputation, and dominance in the industry, watching Trump take over. But the most humiliating part? The same people who had once dismissed Trump, who had arrogantly assumed they could reject him without consequence, now had to watch as he dominated the market they thought they controlled. They had believed they held all the power, but now they were spectators in a game they had already lost. Trump had not only proven them wrong, he had ensured that their names would forever be linked to one of the greatest financial miscalculations in history. A final, unforgettable lesson. The financial world would never forget what had happened. Because this wasn't just about a bank's bad decision, this was a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating someone with the vision, the resources, and the relentless drive to win at all costs. And now, as Trump's name continued to rise, the institution that once thought it could control his fate was left behind, crippled, humiliated, and forced to watch as he shaped the future without them. The same people who rejected him now had to watch as he dominated the market, and there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. Every great leader leaves a legacy. Be part of the conversation. Smash that like button. Share your opinion in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful Trump insights. If history has taught us anything, it is this: never, ever underestimate Donald Trump. For decades, Trump had built an empire by defying expectations, proving critics wrong, and reshaping industries with his bold, strategic thinking. But this moment, this victory, was more than just another success story. This was a warning to anyone who dared to doubt him. The bank had believed that by rejecting Trump, they were closing a door on him. What they failed to realize was that Trump never knocks twice. He builds his own doors. And when necessary, he builds an entire empire around those who try to shut him out. The financial world watched as he took what should have been a setback and turned it into one of the greatest power moves in modern business history. And as the dust settled, one undeniable truth remained. No one tells Donald Trump no and gets away with it. The power of relentless determination. Most businessmen, after being rejected by a major financial institution, would have accepted defeat or settled for a lesser deal. Trump saw rejection as nothing more than an opportunity to prove them wrong on an even bigger stage. He refused to lower his expectations. He refused to accept limitations placed upon him by so-called experts. He refused to let someone else define his future. Instead, he did what only the truly great leaders do. He turned adversity into dominance. This was not just a financial win. This was a lesson in power, strategy, and the art of never backing down. A masterclass in strategy. What Trump did was not just business. It was a statement. He didn't just move forward. He made sure that everyone who had tried to stop him would remember their mistake forever. This was a calculated play that left his adversaries powerless, humiliated, and scrambling to recover. It was a move that ensured that the financial elite would never again assume they had control over his success. Because Trump had done what only the greatest visionaries do. He saw the board, played the long game, and won in a way that no one thought possible. The final warning. This was not just another business deal. This was a defining moment in the world of power and influence. It was a warning to those who believed they could stand in his way, because Trump had proven, beyond any doubt, that he was not someone who could be controlled, stopped, or underestimated. For those who had tried to deny him, the reality was now painfully clear. They hadn't rejected Trump. Trump had rejected them. And while they were left scrambling to recover, Trump was already moving forward, stronger, richer, and more powerful than ever before. If history has taught us anything, it's this: never, ever underestimate Donald Trump. Donald Trump's journey has never been about taking the easy path. He has never been the kind of man to accept defeat, to bow to pressure, or to let others dictate his future. He has faced opposition from the most powerful institutions, critics who claimed he was finished, and enemies who wanted nothing more than to see him fail. And yet, time after time, he has proven them all wrong. This story is not just about a bank's rejection. It is about a man who refuses to be denied. It is about a businessman who turned a no into the most strategic and legendary victory in modern financial history. It is about power, strategy, resilience, and the refusal to be controlled by anyone. And now the world has seen what happens when you underestimate Donald Trump. What do you think? Now that you have seen how Trump took rejection and turned it into a global statement of dominance, ask yourself, would you have done the same? Would you have backed down, or would you have fought back? Do you believe in the power of persistence, strategy, and never accepting defeat? This is your chance to be part of the conversation. Spread the truth. Be part of the movement. The media won't tell this story the way it happened. They won't highlight how Trump outmaneuvered the elites, flipped the script, and emerged stronger than ever. But you can. Like this video to show your support for Trump's resilience. Comment below and let us know what you would have done in his position. Share this video so more people can see how Trump proved the world wrong once again. Subscribe for more legendary stories of power, strategy, and success. This is just the beginning, because if history has shown us anything, it's that Donald Trump is never done winning. And the next chapter? It's already being written. Strength, strategy, and vision. If these qualities inspire you, you're in the right place. Show your support by liking this video, commenting your thoughts, and subscribing for more.